Greetings everyone, and in this video I'm going to continue what I started in the previous one, and I'm going to talk about facing Lee. I'm going to go into the specifics, his strings, frame data, opportunities to duck, opportunities to sidestep, optimal punishes, and whatnot. I'm mainly going to be focusing on Armor King, but again, most of the stuff, the vast majority of it, is going to apply to your character no matter who you play. So with that being said, let's begin. One of his most important and notorious strings is this string 2-2-3. Now, this is part of his counter hit game, as the Blasted Salami mentioned in his video. And it is not an actual combo. You can eat the first hit and block the subsequent hits, but of course on counter hit, that is not possible. It is 50 damage, on top of that it wall splats. So because the first hit is a 10 hit startup high, which is his standing jab or standing 2 jab, it is one of his counter hit fishing tools. Now speaking of which, there is another version to the string which is 1-2-2 and then the same thing, but that string becomes not counter hit confirmable, because even on counter hit, even the first 2 jabs connect, the rest of the string does not. So it is preferable for the Lee player to do the 2-2-3 instead of the 1-2-2-3. The thing is, the whole string is safe because the final hit is a high. Now of course you can duck the high and launch punish it, no matter who your character is again. The issue here is that of course he can stop at the second hit. Now the second hit is also unsafe, it is mid and it's -13. The problem with that is, first of all, you can't option select the 2 with a dig jab, because if he doesn't finish the string, dig jab connects and it's a punish. Weird thing is, when he does finish the string, see, dig jab whiffs. I tried the Armor King here doesn't have a down 2 dig jab. I tried this with King earlier and it still does the same thing. So he takes a sidestep there and he makes dig jabs whiff if he finishes the string. There are some like slightly more dangerous options that you could do here, but for example down 4 is 14 frames, so theoretically if he stops and he blocks low he could punish that. There is sadly no easy answer. I usually, because this final kick is covered by Armor King Sway Punch, I usually advise, and this is -13, which is what a lot of strings across many characters have. I usually advise like shoulder for -13 versus sway punch. Problem with that again is check when he screams when he finishes the string. He gives you an audio cue when the kick is already on its way out, so it's very difficult to confirm whether or not he did the final hit. So typically you're going to try to duck this no matter what, and when he does not finish the string, it is difficult to even get a while standing 4 in. So what I can suggest is trying to get a little bit creative with your answers to this. The noteworthy thing is that, just like I said in my previous video, even though people typically suggest sidestep left against Lee, a string like this is actually not sidesteppable to the left. It will snuff you out. But it is... Again, Armor King is a bit too big. It's sidesteppable to the right, or sidewalkable, whatever. So what I can possibly suggest is looking at your character's sidestep options. Maybe if your character has a quick option out of sidestep, you could punish quickly with jabs. Even when he does not finish the string, maybe you could get something going. It will throw him off. I'm sure that, again, I'm not talking about the best Lees in the world, I'm talking about like typical online Lees. Responding to the string with sidestep right would typically throw them off tremendously. And they typically finish the string regardless, like you could get away with duck and launch punishing it quite a lot, because very few of them actually stop at the second hit. But what I can possibly suggest is that if you play a character like Armor King, sidestep into Death Sandwich. If he does finish the string, you can finish your Death Sandwich and get a launch punish. And if he does not, it's easy to confirm that he did not finish the string there. And even if you get your first hit in, even though it is typically can set this to that. It's typically minus 12. A lot of people know that you have a second hit of this locked and loaded, and they won't punish you. You would get away with it. So in short, sadly, there is no real answer to this, because the full string kind of like makes dick jabs whiff, which is a shame. And you have to get creative against this string, and it's annoying to deal with. Other strings that he has include his 2-1 series. Now these are not as useful because they're not as counter hit confirmable as his 2-2-3, but nonetheless they include 2-1-1, which ends in this rolling elbow, which I talked about in my previous video. It looks extremely similar to his homing move. It is minus 12. It's a mid. 2-1-3, I believe, which is a safe high, and 2-1-4, which is a low that's neutral on hit and launch punishable even by Armor King on block. The nice thing here is, well, if you eat the mid, it's not the end of the world. It's not that much damage anyway. It doesn't give him a huge advantage, it's +3. But gladly, in this instance, Armor King Sway Punch covers all options. So apart from that, I'd say that it's not really a good series of strings. If you stand there, eating the low is not the end of the world. If you duck, eating the mid is not the end of the world. So typically I'd say do whatever you do usually with your character. It's not really worth looking into. I just highlighted it because Armor King Sway Punch option selects the entire string kind of like series. Like I said in my previous video, Lee is one of those characters blessed with an 11 frame Magic 4, which is a counter hit launcher, and he has a lot of extensions off of it. Now all of these extensions that I'm going to list are also going to be accessible by doing down 4 into 4. So you can do these exact same things by starting with a down 4, which as you can see is extremely negative for him, and then doing the 4, and he gets access to the exact same strings here. I'm going to record a string, and I will come back to it. This is one of the things I talked about in my previous video. The first string he has off of his Magic 4 is 4-4-3, and it ends in this axe kick here. As you can see, this is not a counter hit combo, I believe, or sorry, it is a counter hit combo if the Magic 4 connects, but it is not a natural combo. You can block the final hit even if you get hit by the first two, and as you can see, it's minus 13. My problem with it is extremely similar, the final hit that is, to forward 4-3, which used to be his old bound move in all Tekken games, and is, as you can see, safe. Now, right here in practice mode, when we're talking with a chill, like, it's very easy to distinguish between these two. This one, when it's 2 hits, it's not punishable. When it's 3 hits, it is punishable. But sometimes in the heat of the moment, it's going to be very difficult, which is why I suggest, even though it's minus 13, check with a safe mid, unless your Punisher is safe. Typically, Punishers are not safe in this game, unless you're talking about 10-frame Punishers. But if you're late, or if he does something that's not as negative, he can slip under your high. So check with a safe mid, preferably quick. If your character has 12-frame mid like Armor King here, check with this. If it's punishable, it's going to punish, not for the best damage in the world, but you're not going to be susceptible to his mind games of like slipping under your highs with his down 3. Other extensions include, this is by the way the only instance where he is punishable, because off of his 4 he has 4-4 up 3, which leaves him at only minus 9. It is a somersault. It is prone to getting sidestepped or sway punched. You can sidestep it, and you can actually interrupt him with a 10 frame if you're extremely quick, but it's generally not worth the risk, and this is not something I see that much from Lee players. He has a quick version of this, which is 4 up 3, which puts him only at minus 1. This is extremely difficult to react to. And it is the same Punishers or kind of like option selects, like options you have off of his, that second string there exist here, like sidestepping and interrupting and whatever. And finally he has these triple 4s. Now if he does only 2 and he counter hits you, he still gets a combo, I believe. If he does all 3, even on counter he doesn't get a combo. It is still safe at minus 5, but if you hold back, a lot of the times The final 4, as you saw there, will whiff and you get your punish regardless. So these are not super important strings. I just wanted to highlight the issue of his strings looking a little bit similar with the enders. And I'm not seeing these strings come from online leagues all that much. Another string that's beloved by online leagues is this Down 4 series. I'm sure you've seen it quite a lot. It is actually a very bad string. You just have to know how to deal with it. It has a lot of ways of dealing with it. First of all, if you block the final hit, even if you eat the first 3, you can block the final hit. It's not a natural combo. And final hit, as you can see, is minus 20. So it's minus a billion. If you had better execution than mine, you could get in a Dark Upper or Electric Wind Gothis or whatever your launcher is. But sadly for Armor King, his hop kick is lacking in range. Now, it shouldn't even get that far because, as you know, he could not do the final hit or something. All hits for him are kind of neutral or not very advantageous. But the thing is, even if you eat first 2, you can low parry the third. Even if you eat the first, you can low parry the second. So it's low parry city. If you do happen to eat much more of these than you have to, as you can see, even on counter hit, I can low parry the third hit. Just remember that the final one is minus 20. Now, for Armor King players, because I know that not each and every one of us has the execution to squeeze in a Dark Upper there, even though it technically should fit comfortably, you'd say resort to forward 2-1. I have a better middle ground option for you, which is back 3, after which you can dash in into a shoulder. To conclude talking about his strings, he has this 15 frame mid 4-3 that converts into this flurry of kicks that I'm sure you've seen multiple times online. It is a natural combo. Sorry if I could demonstrate that here. Once you get hit by the first one, you eat the full thing and it gives him a launch. The nice thing, of course, is if you block it and if you just hold back, which is what a lot of people do, he's safe. So in that sense, it's a safe mid launcher. But of course, you can duck and comfortably launch punish the last hit. If he doesn't finish it, he doesn't get a launch even if he connects with all the 3 kicks. If he doesn't do the 4, which is the most duckable, most dangerous part of the string, he doesn't get a launch. Another kind of string that I could highlight, this is a string that I've seen sometimes from Lee's. I believe it's maybe a combo ender or a wall ender or something, and sometimes it ends up being blocked. Just remember, this is one of the few times where he is actually punishable at the end of his strings, as you've seen already. And it is, of course, minus 16. Again, Armor King doesn't have the best hop kick range. Getting a Dark Upper in is kind of tricky. You can do forward 2-1, and again, you can do the back 3 into the shoulder that I suggested earlier. Now, this is not the end of his strings. There are other strings that I chose not to highlight. For example, this string. The trick is that it's all highs. You can comfortably duck it, and it's safe. It's like a theme with a lot of his strings, which is why I said ducking against Lee is not a bad idea. And this string, which has a just frame version, which makes it safe. Again, it's all highs, and it's a natural combo, and he can convert to Hitman off of this. But I believe I got the most notable, most online abusable strings. Other than that, if you see something you don't recognize, typically, I'd say, I can give you this opinion with all honesty, try ducking it first. It's likely a duckable high that's safe on block. And try sidestepping right. I've found that off of his string, sidestep right works better than sidestep left, but it is what it is. Definitely one of his most defining features is, of course, the Hitman stance. This is his most important stance. He has another one in the form of this misstep, but it's nowhere nearly as important. Hitman stance is very important to him because he can transition into it off of a lot of stuff. A lot of things listed in the move list and not listed in the move list. The thing about it is, I covered it briefly in my previous video in the overview, and the important pointers are, the sexy options that online leads go for are these, this launcher, which is minus 13 on block, and it is 19 frames of startup, and it's a mid. This Power Crush, which is 17, it's homing, it's a Power Crush, but it's a high. And the 4, which is 24 frames, I don't believe it gives him a full combo launch. it gives him a guaranteed hit or something. And it's of course a stagger low that is launch punishable. Now these are, like I said, the options that online leads go for. And in all honesty, dealing with these is easy, because typically a dick jab is going to interrupt. Because the quickest options from this, that's a mid, actually the only mid there, is 19 frames. He has to be plus 10 for your dick jab not to interrupt him. So if you're facing a Lee that never goes for the options that I'm going to list in a second, typically always challenge, always dick jab him out of the stance. Now the options that should be considered by Lees include the jabs. The one jab, he can do multiple, he can do 1-4, and the second hit I believe is a counter hit launcher. It connected there off axis. Let me try again. Come on. It's a counter hit launcher, but it is 12 frames, it's not even 10. And the quickest mid he has is this 1+2. 1+2, as you can see there, it shows briefly, it's 15 frames of startup. So again, he has to be at least plus 5 for him to be able to interrupt your dick jab. And this mid is not particularly damaging. 25 damage is not that much. Even on counter hit, it's only 27. Doesn't wall splat, doesn't do anything. The final option I want to highlight is this up forward 3, which is this wall bounce. It's 20 frames of startup, it's mid, and it's actually safe. If I could show it here. It's safe at -9. And it's going to come into play slightly when I discuss this thing in depth. The final option, his up forward 4, is not very important. It is only used as a guaranteed follow-up off of certain lows, off of certain stuff. And now I'm going to record the options and come back. Typically, of course, online leads or lead players in general, I'm not going to be transitioning into the stance raw like that. They're usually going to be doing it off of string transitions or off of single hits, like down 3. I chose down 3 as an example for this testing just to show that you shouldn't be respecting the string as much as you think. Because what typically happens is the following. This is his power crush from it, which I highlighted earlier. And what happens is you try to challenge him and you get counter hit by it, and he like destroys you on Oki from here. And with that, you kind of like get discouraged, you start holding back against it, and that's when he starts landing the 4 on you. Now, this is something realistic that can happen, but it shouldn't happen as much as you think. Because, again, like I highlighted, the quickest mid that he has is 15 frames. And the most notable transition into Hitman stance includes his down 3. Now, down 3, I'm going to talk about it alone in a minute, but notice how on its own it's -3 even on hit for him. And upon transition to Hitman stance, it shaves a couple of those frames off and he is at -1. That means that his quickest mid from this stance comes out in 16 frames. That is a lot of time for you to interrupt him. Now, keeping in mind that he does have a 12 frame high, which effectively in this scenario is going to be 13 frames, a dick jab is going to interrupt all of these options. It interrupts the jabs, it interrupts the 2 launcher, it goes under the power crush, and it of course snuffs out the low before it comes out. The only exception, and of course if I record the quickest mid here, the same applies. The only thing he can do to get away from this is actually do the wall bounce, because it gets off the ground quickly enough for him to high crush your dick jab. So if there is a wall nearby, maybe he would go for it, but I haven't seen that many leads go for this wall bounce anyway. Even if he does that, there is still a solution. And the solution is a 12 frame mid, just like I said earlier. It snuffs him out of this, and if you're worried about the power crush, there's a very notable interaction with the power crush, at least for Armor King. As you can see, it gives you enough pushback and it pushes you away from the range of his power crush. So if the Lee transitions into his Hitman stance at anything that is not +5, a dick jab is going to interrupt all options apart from the jumping mid, and a down forward 4 from Armor King or a 12 frame mid is going to interrupt all options, and you mostly have to be worried only about the power crush and how it reacts with that. In my case, as Armor King, as you saw, the down forward 4 pushes me away from the range of his power crush, and I can actually punish it on whiff. The thing that they could do to deal with down forward 4 from Armor King or similar moves is that they are typically linear. So what they can do, and this is now you're not facing like a typical online Lee at all. What they can do is this. They can sidestep. Sorry if I could record it a little bit better. I hope I did. I did not. On final try. They could do that. He can sidestep and jab you out, but this is not a huge thing, and even then, sorry, I should have been quicker. Dick jab still interrupts. So between dick jabbing, between 12 frame mids, and if you really want to go down that route, even power crushes, because your power crush is going to beat his. And even if you're worried about the low, it's going to be quicker than that. So in these situations where he transitions into his Hitman stance at a frame disadvantage, do not respect his stance. Do not let him bully you when he's at a disadvantage. He doesn't have that power crush, is not going to save him from everything. Check out an option that is quick enough, beats the power crush and high crushes, or is quick enough like this 12 frame mid here, and you can just option select your way out of the stance. So in the following section, I'm just going to break down the moves that transition into this, or like the most common ones, and examine when you should challenge and when you should not. When you should not challenge, simply hold back and try to react to the low, because it's not like the quickest thing in the world. You can easily see it. Of course, if you're not playing online, if you're sharp. It's 24 frames, it is definitely reactable. His kind of like animation kind of like gives it away a little bit, so you could react to it. So again, in the comment section, I'm going to see when you should challenge, when you should not. So the general rule of thumb is going to be, if he transitions into Hitman stance on hit, do not challenge. If he transitions into Hitman stance on block, do challenge. And all you have to learn are like 2 exceptions from one rule and 3 exceptions for the other, and they're not really that much of exceptions because these are moves you're gonna have to learn anyway, whether or not he transitions to Hitman stance or not, because they are plus on block. Now on hit, if he transitions off of something like that, he's definitely plus, definitely, so don't challenge. But the notable exceptions are down 3, which I discussed earlier, which is a low, and it is minus even on hit, and while standing 3-3, which is minus 4 even on hit. So these are the 2 options where even on hit you should challenge. On block, these are the moves that are plus on block in transition to Hitman stance. Up 4, 3+4, which is a duckable high, and he's plus 8 if he transitions to Hitman stance off of this. Again, it's a duckable high, and I believe it is... See, again, I don't know where the sidestep left comes from. Back 4, which gives him plus 5. Again, it's a duckable high, but it's a homing move, and there's actually a very good transition for him. And finally, of course, his slash kick, which gives him, I believe, plus 6. So these are the 3 moves that even on block you should respect his follow-ups from Hitman stance, and typically just block and try to look for the low and block it. He has another plus on block move that I will go over later, but I don't believe it has the ability to transition over into Hitman stance. So that's the clear rule of thumb I follow. If he transitions on hit, respect him. If he transitions on block, try to challenge him. Like I said, 12 frame mid or something similar, dig jabs, power crush, something. The exceptions are these plus on block moves, and on hit respect him unless it's the down 3 all while standing 3-3. His other stance is not as good. This misstep here, of course he has transitions into it. It has this launcher, but it is typical, it's minus 13 on block, and I don't believe you're going to mistake it for anything. It has this extremely telegraphed low sweep, which is the same as his slide, and of course Armor King is one of those characters that can easily punish it and combo it, float it. And the final option involves a lot of respect, like you should be really respecting him for him to land this on you. It does crush, it does give him some evasion, but this is like extremely, it's not going to be that much of a big factor. I could say that all of these options are kind of like linear. You can sidestep this to the left or the right, even though I think sidestep left is a little bit more reliable, as you saw there. And of course you can sidestep the slide. But the issue there is that he flies away from you and you don't punish him. So I don't think you should be sidestepping against his misstep all that much. And Hitman stands for what it's worth, because the power crush is a homing high, you're not going to be sidestepping it as much. So I don't think there's that much room for sidestep here. Other moves that I chose to highlight include this homing mid that he has. I talked about it earlier. I said how it is safe, it's mid, and it looks similar to some of his string enders. This feather landing is +4. It's mostly used as a guaranteed follow-up to some of his lows. It is +4. I don't believe he has the option to transition to Hitman stance off of this. I tried, but maybe I'm wrong. Even if he does, the same would apply as I mentioned previously. And he's +4 here. What's the real danger here is that it leaves him in crouch and it gives him a crouch mix-up that we're going to talk about in a second. This back 4 here is typically -3. It is mid, and it is very steppable. This is one of the things that I took from Blasted Salami. I wouldn't have figured this out by my own. But if he transitions into Hitman stance off of it, it becomes -2, so again the same would apply. Don't let him bully you here. But it becomes very difficult to step. It becomes practically homing. But the same would apply when it comes to the Hitman stance. Of course, on counter hit, this gives him a full launch. So this is one of his best keep out tools. And finally, for this section, I chose to highlight his blazing kick. Of course, it is extremely punishable if he does it out in the open. Again, Armor King hop kick does not reach. But as I said in my previous video, this is mostly used as a steel pedal that damages enemies on the ground. And this is the reason you shouldn't be teching as much, because if you eat this and you get launched for something you could have just blocked and punished, you're gonna get really pissed. The power crush that he has access to in the neutral is this, and it is -15 and it lost its pushback, so it's easy to launch punish it even as Armor King. The thing that I mentioned, which still stands, is his forward 4-3, depending on like the side switch and whatever, sometimes you could get confused between that and the power crush, and if you try to hop kick that, you're gonna get something nasty. So again, use the audio cues. I believe the sound he makes is very different. And keep an ear for that and try to distinguish between these two, because like I said, sometimes you could get mixed up based on the side switch, based on like the customization that the Lee has on him, so on and so forth. And now to his full crouch game, or his options from full crouch. Of course, he has the slide, and it is very similar to this misstep slide in the punishability and like attributes, so I'm not going to cover it again. And notably, like I said, from while standing, he has a 14 frame while standing, well, quote-unquote launcher. Because the first hit is a 14 frame, it does launch like that. He doesn't get like the best combos in the world, but he is Lee after all. The notable thing is that he has another way of finishing that string in the shape of while standing to 4. As you can see, it wall splats, and the final hit compared to that one is actually safe. And it is -4. Now, distinguishing between these two, again, at least for me, if you have better reactions, if you have better like awareness, distinguishing between these two can be like a little bit difficult sometimes, but keep in mind that this one is -13, the full-fledged launcher. I talked about his while standing 3-3. It is -4 even on hit. On block it is -15. And he can transition to Hitman stance, but it's not one of those transitions that you should respect even on hit. And the follow-ups are the infinite kicks. If I record these here, this is kind of like the reason why you're not going to be punishing this while standing 3-3 all that much. But what's nice is, again, Armor King Sway Punch covers both options, because from there he can go for a mid or a low, and that's kind of like his mix-up there. Sorry. And Armor King Sway Punch covers both options. So you can have ways of dealing with this. If you low parry him, if you sidestep and punish him, there are a lot of ways to deal with it. Just keep in mind that he has the infinite kicks, and don't pull the trigger on your Punisher extremely quickly. And because of what I said earlier, one of his notorious frame traps online is he could do that, or he could of course go for the more kind of like common option in while standing 2-3. The reason this works is of course because, like I said, feather landing is +4 on block, and if you try to challenge with jabs, he counter hits you out of it. He could go for the safer option, which is while standing 3-3. But typically just recognize that first hit is plus on block, it is +4. And be respectful of his options. Try to look for a possible slide out of there, it could come out. Finally, when it comes to his lows, they're not the best, like we said in the beginning. Down back 3 is +2, but it doesn't crush and it's relatively slow at 20. Down back 1+2 is, like the Plastic Salami says, kind of like its bigger cousin. It has bigger frame advantage, it is slower, it does high crush I believe, but it is slow. And I believe on block, it is still like barely punishable at -13. Some characters can launch it, most of the cast cannot. But definitely his most notorious low, like apart from the slide here, of course the most important one is down 3. This used to have tracking to both sides. Tracking to the left was nerfed in this season, Season 3. The most important thing to keep in mind is that it is disadvantageous even on hit. -3, even if it transitions to Hitman stance, like I said, still -1. And on block, it is launch punishable. It's -17. So keep that in mind. And overall, like I said, his lows aren't the most damaging thing. His other ways of breaking up turtles are this throw, which is a 1+2 break, and it gives him, I believe, only a guaranteed feather landing. It doesn't give him a full launch. I don't believe he can run into a back 3-3 pickup. I could be wrong, but I don't believe I've seen it. Mostly it's forward 3+4, this feather landing thing. And the other is his the mist trap, which I showed in my previous video. It's only 20 damage, and he has to stay there like a sitting duck for a long time. So typically, if you just hold back against Lee, you're rarely going to eat something nasty. The final option I choose to cover out of like pure novelty is his 10-hit string. It has been in the game for a long time. It is very easy to recognize where the low is and low parry it. I believe this is borrowed from Law. So even like the final hit, as you saw there, if you just simply hold back and eat the low, it's going to whiff and you can punish him. So it's nowhere near as important, and I don't believe it's going to give you that much trouble. With that being said, I believe this is all that I want to say about Lee. I'd say he's one of the easier characters to fight against in Tekken 7, at least in theory, even though he can be very safe and annoying. Again, the general overall game plan, try to not do a lot of highs because he wants to slip under those with down 3. And once he frustrates you enough to do slower mids that are like 13, 14, that's when he starts counter hitting you with his 2-2-3 or Magic 4 or whatever. And for his Hitman stand, just recognize how he transitioned into it, based on which choose to either challenge or choose to just simply hold back and look for the low and block it. I believe that's going to be it. I hope you found this video helpful in conjunction with the previous one. I'm going to upload, I believe in addition to this one, another video of like a few matches that I had against online leads, analyzing my mistakes, trying to like analyze what was going on in the match, the general game plan, and so on and so forth. So thank you all for watching, take care, and I'll see you all next time.